About ADAPT 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne. Good afternoon, everyone. And before we get started today, this is in no way, shape, or form financial advice for anyone. This is how I see the future unfurling with the tokenization of global commodities and trying to bring you this information. And now, on with the interview. As always, I'm trying to bring you the latest, and what I see is innovation moving forward as grain prices rise, metals prices rise, and we start to get into this inflationary period, and people are going to try to protect themselves. And as I've said from the beginning, we're going to move into smart contracts and cryptocurrency to assure payment because the fiat systems are collapsing. People aren't going to be assured of payment. So the only way of 100% guarantee of payment between buyer and seller in the future, in my opinion, is going to be locked up through smart contracts, cryptocurrency, and blockchain to avoid any fraud as documentation transits across the planet with some of the most valuable commodities. Today I have with me Extra von NotHaus, co-founder of LD2. He has 20 years of experience in precious metals markets, alternative digital currencies, international banking, and fintech, founding member of multiple startups. And those of you in the cryptocurrency space, he's hosted a series of workshops on blockchain at MIT. Also with me, Stephen Brendtro, co-founder, over 20 years of fintech, alternative digital currency, web development, system architecture. And again, those of you devs out there, DevOps engineering. This is going to be an incredible conversation. Metals are always going to be an integral part. Metals have been used for thousands of years as a way to buy, sell, and trade during times of economic duress. Take it into the current era. Now we can overlay blockchain technology on top of that. Today, we're going to be talking about, as I've said from the beginning, we are going to begin to tokenize assets moving through the cryptocurrency buildup, through the blockchain buildup globally as we start to use this across the planet, just like we did to build out the internet in the early 90s. Because many of you are also talking about silver and how to access precious metals where it can't be taken away from you, even in times when there's confiscation. LD2 is an asset-backed cryptocurrency that facilitates vaulted physical ownership of redeemable precious metals and real-time trading of these assets using the blockchain. I've had a couple questions sent to me earlier asking about the safety of this, how can the token holder redeem or exchange the metals, where's your depository vault, what's involved with auditing. So I'd like you to run through a few of these things. So I'm going to leave the floor pretty much open, and if a point does come up, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions on that, but right now the floor is yours. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us, David. Yes, as you mentioned, LD2 is a silver-backed cryptocurrency. In general terms, the way that LD2 actually functions is as a blockchain-based digital warehouse receipt. When a customer buys silver from us, we give them in return the digital receipt in the form of a digital token. And that digital token represents 1 ounce of physical silver sitting in the warehouse, in the vault, at the depository. That allows for physical redemption of that receipt for the actual physical silver whenever the token holder decides to do so. This allows the silver that's held in the vault to be traded between individuals as they trade the tokens and the receipts. And the receipts function as bearer receipts. And so whoever has the token has the ability to redeem it for the physical silver. And having the ability to redeem it for the physical silver is important in a couple different ways. Certainly one of them is it allows you to access the asset, or the commodity, should I say, whenever you choose to do so. And that helps the economics of the LD2 tokens because it creates an inherent price floor. And what I mean by that is, if you can always redeem the tokens for the physical silver, then there is a price where it makes more sense to redeem the physical silver and either hold it or sell it for spot or melt, if you will, rather than take a lower price for that token. Unlike other cryptocurrencies that don't have any underlying asset, there is nothing to prevent the price of those tokens in an exchange or in an open market to go to zero. Whereas with the LD2 tokens, because the physical silver is always available to be sold independently of the tokens once redemption has been done, it allows there to be, like I said, a price floor to what the value of the tokens are. That is some of the economics behind why we did a physical silver-backed cryptocurrency. In addition to that, or related to that, should I say, is the security of the silver. As the tokens are sold clearly and traded, the bearer of the tokens is relying on that silver being in the vault in order to maintain that solvency. We took security very seriously, and as you alluded to, we have a vault that holds all the silver. The vault operator, the depository, is in charge of the security of it, but then we also hired a independent third-party CPA firm to do a monthly audit of the depository itself, so that it's not just us, the issuer of the tokens, or the depository, or the auditor that you have to rely on. It's really a three-pronged approach to security and to ensuring that for every digital token, the 1 ounce of silver that you have purchased is sitting in the vault. In addition to the ongoing security of it, we built the smart contracts in order to only allow the tokens to be issued if all three of those parties, that being the issuer, the depository, and the auditor, has already independently verified that the silver is in the vault in order to issue the tokens.
Right, and one of the questions that I would have right away is, in the depository, which state is that located in? Is it Texas? Is it New York? People will have just more questions about where the physical location is through the blocks, because as we've seen through the blockchain, there's been a lot of fraud going on, fraudulent practices. People say they have something, they don't have something, but when you're talking about a physical commodity, this is where people want to know, where is the location of said vault?
So the short answer, New York. The longer answer actually gets back to the reason, the need for knowing where this is, and that intersecting the whole point of cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency networks are designed to be decentralized, where you don't have to rely on any one entity or individual and put all your trust, all your eggs in one basket. That's the goal of blockchain. But when you start to intersect with anything in the physical world, you have to put trust someplace. And so what we did is we've got the depository that's in New York, where it's vaulted, but then we tried to decentralize even among our, so that we've got us as the issuer issuing the tokens, you've got the depository that's holding onto the tokens, and then you've got a third-party auditor, vault examiner, that goes in on a regular basis, monthly, and attests to the fact that the silver is actually there. It makes things a lot more secure. Again, short answer, it's in a vault in New York. But the more secure answer is that it's checked on by a third party. And then again, as Extra said, we can't even issue tokens for those assets until both the depository and the auditor attest to the silver actually being there.
The smart contract, nothing can move until there's at least a dual signature on issuing more tokens, or is there also another person outside of that, such as yourself or Steven, also that needs to add in a fourth or a fifth signature to put those keys in to execute to allow more tokens to be issued against what the troy ounces are in the depository?
That's correct. So it's a 3-signature model with the auditor, the depository, and the issuer signing on it.
It's similar to anyone who is familiar with what's described in cryptocurrency as a multi-sig wallet. So there are multi-signature wallet providers who only move tokens and cryptocurrencies in and out of wallets when you have a requisite number of signatures. And so this is an analogous type of structure where not one signature or not one private key allows you to do anything. You need to have all 3 private keys perform a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain in this instance in order to allow any tokens to be issued. And that ensures that we as the issuer cannot print money, for lack of a better expression, as fiat monetary policy allows, so that all 3 need to be signed on and validated with their private keys. And obviously, those 3 keys are independently maintained by the 3 different parties. And so no one party would ever have the ability to verify that there are ounces that don't actually exist in order to issue tokens that are not backed by anything.
Yeah, that's a peace of mind a lot of people are looking for, as well as a physical location, because through the cryptocurrency space, as it evolves and moves forward, as I am always alluding to and trying to find the best and the newest innovations in tokenizing commodities, as I see moving out, we're going to have to pre-buy a lot of things. You're going to have to come into purchasing that physical good and verifying that you own it on the blockchain. So we're talking about silver here, and this is a great inroads into, as always, there's first steps, second steps, third steps, but tokenizing something that has real value. Tokenizing art, I mean, you can, take $1 million painting and divvy that up and how many tokens, but that really, is that physical? Is that real value? And really, could you, redeem your token and say, well, give me the value of that piece of art? There's some things like this going on in the net, but it seems that coming in with the precious metals end of it to tokenize that. Now you're having a couple rounds here. The first is the private issue, and I must say these coins, the silver mint coins, are absolutely stunning. They're beautiful. Now, I'm over here on LD2coin.io, and I wanted to ask you about the different rounds that you're starting to achieve right now. The first round is a private issue, limited edition collectible silver-backed token, 1 ounce, 1 troy ounce of silver against the token issuance, but the coins themselves stunning. But then we come down to LD2 Silver, where it seems like it's going to be an open-ended silver-backed token. And, for us out there that are trying to speak English to English, an open-ended silver-backed token, what does that mean?
We refer to them as issuances. It's a series of issuances that incrementally get larger because unlike other cryptocurrencies of where, again, you can kind of print money or create as many tokens as you want out of thin air, we actually need to purchase the silver and have it held in the vault in order to issue any of the tokens, as I alluded to earlier. And so we have a much different economic requirement for our business, should I say, or capital requirement, maybe a better way of putting it, than other cryptocurrencies. And so in order to ensure that we had built the platform accurately and as securely as possible, we started with the first issuance, which is LD2 Zero, and that is only 10,000 ounces and therefore 10,000 tokens. And that gave us the ability to prove our platform works and prove our platform is secure without having the scalability solved yet. And what I mean by that is with a closed number of ounces, 10,000 as I said, we were able to find a vault that could handle that size and that scale, and then build the different smart contracts that we needed, knowing that we're only going to have this limited amount of silver and tokens issued. That gave us the ability, like I said, to prove that the smart contracts work, that the redemption process works, that the auditors were in place, and that all these processes were properly vetted and worked through before we moved on to, as you alluded to, LD2 Silver, which is the second phase and the second issuance, which is open-ended. By that, we mean that we're going to be purchasing silver and issuing tokens based on that silver holdings regularly without a cap involved. LD2 Zero was capped at the 10,000 ounces that we started with, where LD2 Silver will be open-ended and will continue to add more silver to it and issue more tokens based on that silver as we scale up. And so that allows us to take what we've built in LD2 Zero and adapt it for a larger scale operation. And that gives us the ability to have 100,000, a million, 10 million, whatever the market can sustain in terms of assets held in the vault and associated tokens issued. We wanted to do it in an incremental fashion because Steve and I have built enough businesses and enough software that we know that going from 0 to 100 is often a major problem. And so starting with something manageable with LD2 Zero allowed us to fix any problems that we could find now and ensure that when LD2 Silver comes out, we've already done the legwork and had an operating system already in place for some time. And so that's why there's a couple different issuances, because that mirrors our intent of an incremental buildup.
Yeah, and that's very important what you just said, because trying to scale up in the blockchain world, it's just like when you're trying to scale a traditional brick and mortar business. Are you going to go from a storefront to a mega store in a single day? No, that would be very difficult. And also, these again are the first steps in starting to tokenize real commodities that have spot prices associated with them that can then be swapped between peers or buyers and sellers. And moving out into grains, I mean, the first step here with the precious metals is incredible, because as with everything, and you have seen it time and time and time and time again, it starts with the very first provable platform. It has a provable commodity or service business, and then it scales, and then it builds, and then people find other applications, and then they start adding in other commodities, and before you know, there's 50 other commodities operating on the same principles of being able to tokenize it, have it warehoused, authenticate it, auditing, and everything. But here is the very first step. This is my opinion, and this is why I'm bringing you this information. A, I believe in silver as sound money, and B, as we move forward, the grains are going to get expensive, and there's going to have to be ways to authenticate ownership and also ways for buyers and sellers to swap between outside the fiat system. With that being said, walk me through, if I want to redeem the silver, let's say I have 10 ounces and I say I want those in my hand. How am I going to go about getting those?
Sure. So if you have the tokens in a wallet, and right now it's ERC20 compatible wallet on the Ethereum blockchain, you would first go to the LD2coin.io website and you click on the redemption. What you're going to essentially do is you're going to pay for the shipping and handling and insurance to have it shipped to your address. That's the first step. Once the depository has received payment for the shipment, then you go ahead and you send the number of tokens that you said you wanted to redeem. You send those to the depository's wallet. Once you've done that, the depository matches up the order and knows that it was coming from your wallet address. It already sees, okay, you paid to have this shipped to you. And the depository at that time takes those tokens and does what's called a burn. It basically destroys those digital tokens and takes the silver out of the vault, boxes it up, and ships it to the address with tracking, with insurance, and it goes straight to your doorstep.
I'll add a small piece to that. As we described in the beginning, when you come to our site and you buy a token, you are buying the physical silver. So the silver purchase happens on the front end. And again, we give you the digital token as a warehouse receipt. The silver is purchased initially at the beginning of the transaction, and then those tokens are sent to your wallet. So when it comes to redemption, as Steve alluded to, all you're doing is paying for the shipping and handling and insurance to get that silver that you already owned sent to you directly. There's no additional cost besides the shipping, handling, and insurance when you choose to redeem. Because the silver is already there, you're only providing the receipt to us and asking for it to be delivered.
And on top of that, the shipping insurance costs that we've got set up on the site, we went to great lengths to make sure that it's affordable. If you look at most of the bullion houses out there, and let's say that you've got a couple ounces that you want to redeem, maybe it's $30, $40 worth of silver, you can end up getting charged $30 to $40 in shipping and redemption fees from those bullion houses. So if you look at the prices and shipping and insurance that we have, it's very close. It's U.S. priority mail with tracking and insurance. So it's very close to the actual cost of what it takes to get it out of the vault and shipped. So we're not trying to soak people on the prices. We understand that it's their silver and they want easy access to it. And if we make it any harder for them to get their silver, it's going to cause problems. So we just want this as easy as possible for people to have vaulted, secure silver denoted on the blockchain, and they can trade it at will. No, there's no transaction fees. We hadn't brought that up before, but a lot of the other people who are touting silver-backed or gold-backed cryptocurrencies, they're adding like 3% transaction fees. So every time you move the silver to a different ERC20 wallet, there's a transaction fee. There's none of that with LD2. It's your silver, you move it however you want it. Whatever the transaction fees are just the gas that you provide to the Ethereum network to make the transaction happen, just like every other ERC20 transaction. And then when it comes down to redemption, you just pay reasonable shipping costs. That's it.
So these are transferable. Let's say I would like to give my sister a gift of some of the coins. I have the wallet address, and then I just send it over to her wallet. And that's for those of you who are just learning about cryptocurrency, the way the wallet addresses can be sent from one wallet to another, one person to another, swapping. So you're saying there's no fee involved in that. So if I was going to give this as a gift to somebody,
on the Ethereum network, there's going to be a transaction fee that's built into the network mining fees and things like that. Just for instance, if I was going to transfer, whether it be 1 ounce or all 10,000 ounces of the LD2 zero issuance, if I was going to transfer it directly to your account, right now it probably would cost like maybe 30 cents to do that transaction. None of that goes to LD2. That's all the Ethereum blockchain miners who are making the transaction happen. So it's not based on how much you're sending. It's just based on the transaction itself.
Those of you listening out there, if you're first time hearing about some of these tokenized commodities, you're learning about blockchain, you're learning about cryptocurrency, I highly encourage you to learn more about cryptocurrency, whether it be LD2 coin or Ethereum or whatever else is out there, because this truly is going to be the new medium of exchange moving forward through the next decades, plural. And also, as I say, every podcast that we're talking about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency, this is no way, shape, or form financial advice for anyone out there. We're just discussing the future, and I truly believe this is the future. Now, also another component of cryptocurrency is the instability in the price fluctuations, and this is what scares a lot of people. It's an opportunity for a lot of people, but traditional investors are scared to death of the fluctuations in the prices over, Bitcoin. You see it go from 6,000 to 9,000 and back down in 20 minutes. So a lot of people are really not willing to take those types of risks to hold on because they're so afraid of the price movements. Now, in your white paper, you're also talking about using silver and using what you're creating here with tokenized commodities with silver as a stable coin. And this is going to be really interesting. In my own personal questions, this is, for me, an incredibly interesting part because stable coins, I was involved with an ICO where we were going to offer and help people move over into something more stable than Tether. Because Tether, we just don't know what's out there. They won't allow auditing. It should be an incredibly simple audit, but it's just not happening. So what will happen with Tether in the future? Imagine if the U.S. government walks in and says all Tether is deemed zero value and anybody holding Tether lost everything. So we need something else that can keep the value as we move forward as in terms of stable coins. And you hear this phrase tossed all over the place. They've been talking about stable coins now for how many years? It really hasn't evolved. People are working on mechanisms to create a stable coin. But here in your white paper, you allude to using the silver here.
You alluded to Tether,
explain that a little more to us?
which is largely considered to be the first stable coin. But as you also alluded to, that is somewhat of a dubious distinction because they can't pass an audit. They're not very transparent. There is no real assurance that there actually is $2.8 billion sitting in some bank account somewhere that backs up the 2.8 billion token that they have issued. While it introduced the concept of a stable coin as a cryptocurrency that you could get out of something that's more speculative like Bitcoin into something more secure without having to go to fiat, it really didn't go far enough, in my opinion. So there's been other stable coins, quite a few that have been announced recently. Basis comes to mind after raising 133 million. Circle out of Boston is doing a stable coin after raising another 110 million. There's TrueUSD, there's Gemini Dollar, there's a whole bunch of those. Almost all of those, well, certainly all the ones that I mentioned, and most of the ones that are out there, are actually backed by US dollars. They're either directly backed by US dollars or they're pegged to the US dollar price through some algorithm. But inherently, you're taking a fiat cryptocurrency and you're backing it with fiat currency. And so, in our opinion, that just doesn't suffice. That just doesn't make sense for a lot of monetary and economic reasons. When we describe LD2 as a stable coin, we rely more on the stability and depth and liquidity in the silver market, so that it's not as if we're basing this crypto on another unasset-backed currency or fiat currency, right? That's just shifting where the volatility comes from. Anybody who knows monetary policy or the history of the dollar knows that since the creation of the Federal Reserve, the US dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power to inflation. And so backing up a crypto with an inherently inflationary currency just doesn't seem to solve the problem, is probably the most frank way to put it. By backing up the crypto with not only the silver price, but actually physical silver, we expect that there to be less volatility in that and far more security in it, because not only does it not put you in jeopardy of the same inflationary forces that the US dollar is subject to, but again, we have the auditing and we have the security to ensure that the silver is actually there. Stablecoin has kind of become somewhat of a misnomer in a lot of applications. Again, we don't feel that backing up a crypto with fiat is actually all that stable.
Yeah, understood. And that was a nice, smooth explanation there that people can understand easily, especially as we see this grand solar minimum intensifying, and you just know food prices are going to continue to rise, doubling and tripling over these next few years. And as the average consumer across the planet, and I don't care what country you're in, you eat every day. And as you start to divert all of that disposable spending over into the food economy, the regular economy, what we consider, the extras, the restaurants, the electronics, the cars, the vacations, the holidays, the travel, whatever it is, that is going to start to shrivel and dry up. And as we saw in 2009, what happened with that? And this is very well, in my opinion, going to be a repeat of that. But since we eat every day and there's no way to not eat, this is a game-changing reset button that we're sliding into over here in the next few years due to effects from our sun on this 400-year cycle. So just for people listening out there, I am curious. I have a crystal ball seeing how tokenizing commodities and this using of blockchain with buyer, seller, trader directly with assets behind it, true assets behind it. Just in your opinion, stake me out. What's your crystal ball? What do you see 5, 10 years from now in the evolution and the expansion and the usage of commodities that are tokenized?
We certainly agree that the tokenization of assets is only going to, and commodities is only going to continue to ramp up. One of the things that Steve alluded to earlier was about centralization versus decentralization. And I think that having a system, especially a financial system, that is largely centralized and having your commodities held by one entity, a custodial, for example, is a weak point. I mean, that's purposefully why Bitcoin was designed to be decentralized, in order to allow that no one node or no one party in it is a weak point. I think that as that concept continues to be extrapolated out through different blockchain solutions, it only further strengthens the need for a tokenized solution where the assets may be held in one place, or the commodities may be held in various places, but purchasing of that and the sourcing of that is really global.
And you'll be able to find more information at LD2coin.io. That is Lima Delta number 2 coin.io. You can find information about the vault itself, the white paper, the timeline for executions, and more about the LD2 Zero sale, as well as the physical redemption and physical ownership of the precious metals. Links are below in the description box, and I appreciate your time. Stephen, Extra, thanks so much for joining me.